Hello everyone, welcome to Think Socio. In today's video, I'll be sharing with you 10 tips to crack UGC NET Paper 1. As the exams are already going on, I hope this video helps some of you at least. So as we all know, to give a general overview about Paper 1 carries 50 questions of 2 marks each, which will make it a 100 marks paper. And these 50 questions will be from 10 sections. And what are these sections? These sections are teaching aptitude, research aptitude, comprehension, communication, mathematical reasoning and aptitude, logical reasoning, data interpretation, information and communication technology, people development and environment, and higher education system. Now let's move on to the tips that I was talking about. The first tip would be to not leave out any particular section. All the above 10 sections are equally important, but they are not equally tough. So you might find some of the sections harder than the other, and there will be a tendency to kind of leave out certain sections. But it is important to cover the basics of each of the chapter. And why is it important? It is important because among the 50 questions, it will be 5 questions from each section. So when you're missing out one section, you will be totally losing the opportunity to answer, or score 5 marks for yourself. So you don't want to do that. So that will be my first tip. Even if you're preparing very late, make sure that you don't leave out a section completely. At least, go through the book and maybe look at the glossary, look at the PYQ and all. And that brings me to the next tip, which is very important, which is referring to previous year's questions. Why is referring to previous year's questions important? It is important because even though the same questions are not asked, the pattern of question always repeats. In each of the section, the kind of the questions that has come before will be repeated. So when you look at the PYQs, you will get an idea on how to look at a particular section and what to expect, what kind of questions to expect from that particular section, and you can prepare accordingly. And that is why PYQs are very, very, very important. Do refer to the PYQs. At least solve at least 10 PYQs, or previous year's papers. You may find it tough and it might crush you a little bit, but it is very important. And then you can go back to your source book, whichever you're studying from, and then learn again, which will only help you, to answer the questions when it comes to the exam. The next tip would be, it's not a tip per se, but something of major importance, is that teaching and research aptitude, which is the crux of the whole UGC NET exam, you must cover the whole of it. And these are the most interesting sections of paper 1, I must say. It is important to read them, understand, and also make notes, at least in research aptitude, because there will be many terms that you're uh, coming across maybe for the first time. It's important to make note of them. Teaching aptitude is very interesting to read, as we are preparing ourselves to be professors or teachers in future. It is very interesting to understand the whole idea of teaching in a classroom and the kind of attitude and approach that we have to have in the classroom towards our students. So the questions will be along the lines of how will we solve a particular situation that arises in a classroom, which will involve our decision making, and that ultimately tests our ability as a teacher. So teaching aptitude and research aptitude are very important. Even they'll have 5 questions from each of those sections. It is important to read them and understand them. Now, the fourth tip would be this. I'm letting you know, as you may already know, the major scoring areas in paper 1: mathematical aptitude, data interpretation, and comprehension. Comprehension among these three is the easiest one. When I say easiest one, it doesn't mean you can, maybe just go ahead very confidently with it. Always look at the PYQs and try and read these comprehension passages and try to understand what they're saying. It might take some time, so it's always good to increase your reading speed and also uh, understanding ability. So reading is obviously ideal, and that will help you to answer the comprehension questions. With regard to mathematical aptitude and data interpretation, the formulas of ratios, proportions, how to make like how to calculate percentages, simple interest, compound interest, all the mathematics that we used till 10th, only 10th, that will be asked. But it's important that we refresh on our formulas. So again, doing uh, PYQs will help, and these three sections can actually help you score 15 marks, which is very important. So uh, even if you are not very good at mathematics, please take your time and practice certain questions, and there is a probable chance that certain kind of questions repeat, and then you can have an idea to answer them in your exam. Now, my fifth tip would be to not lose confidence over factual questions, because there will be factual questions. Uh, Two sections which are very tricky while studying is higher education system as well as people development and environment. There is a lot to cover, there's a lot to unpack, and it's a very extensive area as well. So there will be questions that you have not really studied or heard or even known, and that might confuse you a little bit. But don't lose confidence over such questions is what I would tell you, because there will be other areas where you can focus on and score. um, there is anyways going to be certain questions that you will not be able to answer, especially when they are factual. That might be tough, and you might find them out of syllabus, or something that you did not expect, because the syllabus is very extensive and can come from current affairs and everything. With in higher education, always look at uh, NEP 2020. It is very important, so make sure that you go through that. And people development and environment, again, look at the recent international conventions on environment protection and so on. Now, the sixth tip would be uh, in how to go about learning logical reasoning and communication section. What is the issue is that when we look at PYQs from these two sections, it's hard to learn from the PYQs because the questions never repeat the same way. It's it may help us in understanding what kind of questions come from these sections, but the conceptual clarity we need to answer these questions is very basic. So communication may sound very simple to you, but it's not that easy. There are different types of communication, there are theories surrounding communication, and there are founders of these theories. There are verbal and non-verbal communication, effective communication. So what are these concepts and what do they mean? That is important, and if you have that conceptual clarity, then you'll be able to answer these questions. In logical reasoning, again, logical reasoning, wow, like, should be easy and basic, you might think, but uh, there are a lot of theories and fallacies and logical argument, how a proposition, hypothesis, the differences, what are the differences among uh, of these terms, what are their definitions, and how do you understand whether uh, one is a proposition or not, or what are the different kinds of fallacies. All these encompass these two sections, so you will have to go a little bit in depth with logical reasoning and communication. My seventh tip would be to make notes. It is important to make notes. Why is it important? Especially when you're revising just before the exam, you might not be able to go through the whole book. So always note down the mathematical formulas, the theories and founders, communication theories and their founders. That's a very much repeated question. Then higher education, evolution of higher education in India, different commissions that have been set up, and their objectives respectively, environment protection conventions that has been um, that has happened globally. All these are very important, so it's important to make a note of them, maybe in a paper that you can just revise even right before the exam. Now, eighth tip is for all those people who started preparing late for paper 1. There is My tip would be to not waste much time reading books. When I say books, I mean paper 1 reference book, because these are very lengthy books, and in each section you have a lot to read, and some of the sections are boring per se. Boring, you may find it boring, especially when you're reading so fast, you might not understand. So when you find it boring, what I would suggest is that take 3 uh, previous year's question papers or previous session question papers, paper 1. Try solving them, look at the answer keys and try solving them. And after solving them, what you can do is try to categorize the questions from each section. Try if you can find, okay, this is from teaching aptitude, so what are the 5 questions that have come from teaching aptitude, what are the 5 questions that has come from logical reasoning. So uh, like kind of categorize them according to the sections, and then go back to the book and look at the sections, and then surf through the book sections, and find areas where you can find the answers. And the subtitles in the book sections will help you, since it's an MCQ. You don't need to explain anything, you just need to remember what was what and where was it, and find the exact answer among the multiple choices given. So surfing through the book sections after solving the PYQs would be something that can help you. And then if you find certain concepts confusing, you can always watch YouTube videos. There are several videos by several educators already on YouTube that can help you in understanding these concepts better. Now, ninth tip would be how to deal with this section, information and communication technology. ICT is also one of the sections, and there is a glossary of terms in that particular section. It is ideal to go through the glossary of terms at least twice and kind of try to you know have an idea of the terms and their abbreviations and all. In terms of computer, understand the hardware, software differences, what are all the other devices related to it, how are they defined, um, have an idea on storage, memory, and also uh, ICT related governance and policies is another area where questions frequently come. So, from this section, you can also focus on that. My final tip would be uh, a general tip on answering any MCQ question. Read and understand the question and eliminate incorrect options. And when there are similar options, always choose the more specific or precise one. There is going to be situations where you feel that two of the multiple choices given look like that, so they are very similar. Make sure that you choose the more specific or more precise one, and that is the trick to answering an MCQ. And allocating your time wisely is important. Also, do not spend too much time on a particular questions, especially with in mathematical aptitude and all. Don't spend too much time. Also, do not spend a lot of time reading the comprehension. Read the comprehension enough to understand. Read it slowly so that you can understand, but never spend a lot of time on a particular or single question. And that being said, that was my 10 tips to crack UGC NET Paper 1. Thank you and all the best for your exam.